Welcome to the Blast Zone, the podcast that digs up the... start me over. Welcome to the Blast Zone, the podcast that digs up the bombs that shook Hollywood. Fucked it up again. I did the same exact thing. Welcome to the Blast Zone, the podcast that digs up the bombs that shook Hollywood and tries to find out why they went up in flames. This week, a movie that dares to ask, what if your toaster wanted you dead? And what if Stephen King was too drunk to tell it not to? This is Maximum Overdrive. Welcome to the Blast Zone.
Welcome to the Blast Zone.
We are not a podcast about bad movies. We are a podcast about movies that did badly.
That's right.
We're also a podcast that dig ups the bomb. Is it the first time I've ever stumbled over the opening line of the podcast?
Feels like it. This is the first time for everything.
Took me a whopping 3 tries to get the intro out. Aside from that, I'm feeling ready to go. But how are you doing this weekend?
Just a small little progress report this time. Something positive. At the beginning of April, after watching what I eat, I got myself under 200 pounds again for the first time in a few months. And I've been staying under there since then, which is good. It's a few weeks now. Over the holidays, I accidentally transformed my body into some sort of loaf. And so I'm happy to say that I'm currently reversing that trend, and I hope to keep it going from here.
Excellent news. Well done.
Thank you.
Taking the steps to improve the quality of life, as always.
Yeah, it's not about how much you weigh, which it's a little bit about that because I'm vain, but it's also my health. Like, I need to not be sedentary. So I'm trying to become an actual mobile person.
That's very admirable. I've been back and forth on being good about going to the gym and being active. This morning, though, I woke up. The kids just had a week off from school, so like that threw my whole fitness routine out the window.
Oh, yeah.
But I woke up this morning raring to go, and I made my way to the gym and had a great session.
Nice.
So thinking that's going to continue throughout the week. Just try to keep that momentum going, because you're right. It's not about the number on the scale, but you can feel when you feel sluggish and you want to get to a better place where you can move freely and be limber.
Yes, all those things. And at my age, the body, it just starts to degrade really fast. If you start to let it slip, all of a sudden it'll turn into some kind of jelly on you. And I want to stay firm as long as I can.
That makes me worried. I like to drink and eat fried food. What am I going to do when I'm in my 50s? But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, if the world is indeed still around.
Yes, that'll be a good problem to have.
But how about this? J.D. Vance got to meet the Pope, and then the Pope decided he'd rather just die than have to live with the memory of that encounter. That's pretty funny.
Maybe he was trying to time it and he was just a little too slow on the trigger.
So I assume you watched Conclave today to remind yourself of the process of selecting a new Pope.
I've had that on my list and it's suddenly very relevant, so I've got to get around to it.
What did you happen to watch this week that you wanted to share with the listeners?
I watched something fun that you and I both watched. It's a movie called Black Bag, the newest Soderbergh.
It's my boy.
It's your boy. So you watched it first. You and a lot of other people said this is good. And you're right. It's really good. I didn't even expect how much I really liked it. For those who haven't seen it, it's a high-stakes spy thriller that has almost no action. It's almost all just people talking in rooms, but yet it's so thrilling. The dialogue's great. The scene work is extraordinary. Wonderful shape to the plot. It wraps around on itself in a really clever and satisfying way. It's the kind of detailed spy story that you definitely have to pay attention to, or you could get a little bit lost. But when you do follow it, it's super rewarding. The performances are really good. There's an ensemble cast of 6 that the story revolves around, and I will quickly name them all because they were also good. Michael Fassbender, Cate Blanchett, Marissa Bella, Tom Burke, Naomi Harris, Regé-Jean Page, and then a little role, a very fiery little performance from Pierce Brosnan that was really fun.
Yeah, he's doing the thing lately. He's popping up in lots of stuff these days.
Yeah, he was cool in this. Everyone was cool. I was really delighted by this movie, and I can't recommend it highly enough.
It flopped super fucking hard, so we might get to talk about it on the podcast, unfortunately. But everything you said, I fully agree with. I also wanted to point out how great it was to just have a movie that's not 50 Shades of Grey. It's not an erotic thriller by any means, but like still strives to be like sexy in a very classy way, which I feel like is just a trait that's missing from movies a lot these days, especially like when you're dealing with people in their 40s and 50s like this movie is. It was such a sexually charged movie, even though there was very little actual sex in it.
Yeah, it's got a very grown-up perspective on romantic relationships, and for a dry British spy thriller, it's got quite a bit of romance in it that is not dry, or you might mistake it for dry. The main couple, you're actually not sure they're footing with each other through the whole thing.
Right. It's a bit of a cat and mouse game.
Yeah, you get to know everybody in this thing and you see how the relationships play out. It's both a relationship movie and a mystery thriller, and all of those things are done at a super high level.
Soderbergh still got it, man. He's cranking out these movies one after another. I just brought Presents a few weeks ago for show and tell, which was his other movie of 2024. And can't wait to see what he does next. Somehow he keeps finding financing for his movies that never make any money, but are loved by many, including myself. And I did just want to say, what happened to Michael Fassbender for like 8 years where he was just doing the absolute worst movies anyone's ever heard of? I was like, did he get divorced? And then I was like, no, he didn't have like alimony payments or anything to make. I can't figure out why his career just took like a nosedive for a few years and then suddenly skyrocketed back up, because he was in some real bad movies for a while.
I didn't even realize. I think I missed his low period.
Are you on his IMDb right now?
I'm trying to look and see, what did I miss him in?
Well, like Assassin's Creed, The Snowman, X-Men Dark Phoenix. He was in Frank. I forgot he was in Frank. The Counselor.
What I'm seeing on his Wikipedia was that from 2020 to 2023, he was busy racing Porsches at Le Mans. Maybe that's why.
Being married to Alicia Vikander. So,
man, he didn't have to worry about his acting career. But yes, he's back. He's in top form in this. So if you forgot how good he can be, watch Black Bag.
And Kneecap. He was really good in Kneecap as well. I watched a lot of movies in the past few weeks, but every time I see a movie in the theaters, I like to bring that because we like to support movie theaters. As much as this podcast is about movies that bombed, like we say often, we don't want movies to bomb. We want movies to make money so they can keep making more movies. So we try to get out to the theaters when we can. Yeah. I was really hoping to have a review of Sinners for everybody today, but alas, life got in the way and I couldn't make it happen yet, but I will be going later this week to check it out and doing my best to avoid Twitter because people are just tweeting out spoilers for a movie that's like 72 hours old nonstop.
Yeah, no kidding.
But I did take my entire family last week to see Minecraft, a Minecraft movie, which did not have high expectations for, obviously. The trailer was full of Jack Black just being like the very obnoxious version of Jack Black that I don't really love. There's two sides to Jack Black, and I'm a big fan of one of them, but the other one not so much. And that's what seemed to be on display. But the movie itself, as somebody who's not well versed in Minecraft lore, so I don't know how faithful it is to the games, and frankly, I don't really care.
Yeah.
The movie is just weird enough where it's almost subversive of like a kid's movie. Like it's really out there. It does some very strange things that are very funny, a lot of them involving Jennifer Coolidge. Jason Momoa is playing a dirtbag, washed up like Billy Mitchell, 80s video game prodigy who like never grew up type of guy.
Okay.
Which is like an interesting role for him. I feel like he's played the goofball more often than he's played like the serious guy, but everyone still thinks of him as the serious guy because of Game of Thrones, which is probably his most prolific performance, but it takes a lot of swings and it misses a few of them. But what a bizarre movie to stake your franchise dreams on. And I can't say too much without spoiling it. It's still relatively new and it's still very popular in the theater, so I don't want to spoil it for anybody who wants to go see it. But I would love to hear your thoughts on it, Ian. When it hits streaming, I hope you'll find some time to watch it because it is fucking bizarre.
Yeah.
But not in a bad way either. It's still pretty enjoyable.
Well, without that kind of endorsement, I probably would have never switched it on, but it sounds like I do have to check it out because I'm like, yeah, that's pure kid stuff. And I'm not a Minecraft kid, so I couldn't see what would be interesting in it for me.
You don't yearn for the mines. You yearn for the sea, not the mines.
Exactly. My yearnings point in a different direction.
They did reference the children yearn for the mines meme a couple times, which I thought was interesting. I was like, are any kids in the audience understand what this is from? And the answer is almost certainly no, but us old Twitter curmudgeons do.
But yeah, you enjoyed it. That's cool that there's stuff in it for you and me.
Speaking of enjoying stuff for you and me, that's not a great segue, but we'll work on what I got here. It's time to talk about Maximum Overdrive. Yeah. Now, we've both been exposed as King fans on this podcast many times. We're both quite fond of Stephen King's writing.
Sure.
I've never read Trucks. I'm sure you have because you're more of a fan of his short stories than I am. You read all the... we just talked. You read all the short story books, you said.
I mean, I thought I did, but I probably did read Trucks, but at this point, I don't recall the reading of Trucks. I remember this movie being out. I remember it being a box cover that I would see at the video store because it has that iconic image of the Green Goblin face on the grill of a big semi-truck.
You think they paid licensing fees for that or no? They go real gonzo style?
It's a good question.
I bet they didn't give a fuck. It just went for it.
It feels like the kind of movie that didn't bother. They were just like, this looks like some other Green Goblin, but it's not him.
It's a Green Goblin, but it's not the Green Goblin.
Exactly. I feel like the movie was probably also something that would turn up a lot on early cable TV, but I was around this movie a lot as a young man, but I managed to never see it until now. So it was brand new to me.
Especially if you were 14 when this movie came out. It feels like the perfect age to see this movie. It's very goofy, but still violent. But the violence it's not scary. It's just violent, which I feel like I described a horror movie like that. Oh, The Monkey. That's how I described The Monkey as well, which is another Stephen King adaptation. It's not scary. It's just violent. And that seems to be the MO for some of these Stephen King adaptations.
They're both gonzo in their own way. This one, Maximum Overdrive, maybe went too far on the 80s action movie aesthetic. Like its violence, it has some bloody horror short story violence in it still, but they spent too much money on pyro. I think it's funny how something as particular as how big the fireballs are when the trucks explode sets the tone of the movie, but it really does. It's like, guys, those are Schwarzenegger Stallone type fireballs. Those are not Stephen King fireballs that these trucks trucks are exploding into.
Especially when we find out that a lot of these trucks are carrying like toilet paper.
Right.
Why are they exploding to that degree? They're not fuel trucks.
Exactly. Yeah, like that was a thing of 80s action movies. It was things that blow up more than they should blow up. But the rationale for that is that you're watching an action movie with a larger-than-life action hero, and when he shoots a gun at something, it knows that it has to blow up larger than life as well. But this is not that. So there's competing rationales. It's like, no, you're blowing up a toilet paper truck. It should blow up like a toilet paper truck, not like a towering inferno.
Yeah, but they had to bring some excitement to this movie somehow because it's mostly just trucks driving in a circle.
That's true.
They had to bring the heat somehow. I'm still not sure where I land on this movie. I might arrive at my final feelings as we're talking through it because my first time through this movie, it took me a while to finish my first watch. I watched it in 15-minute increments because I was just like, how much time is left?
Yeah.
But then the second time, I let the vibes wash over me and I just enjoyed it. And you know what? This movie's really bad, but it is also silly enough to be a good time.
It is. I agree with you on that. I often only watch movies that way, but this one especially felt interminable because a lot of it is the same. It's the nature of the story. You're stuck in a truck stop and trucks are patrolling around you. A lot of the scenes kind of look the same. But on my second watch, I also warmed up to it. And not only to the heart of the movie, because you start to like some of the characters and you start to gloss over.
You like three of the characters. There's three characters that are likable.
That's true. You like exactly three of them. And you get over its biggest plot holes and goofy moments. And I actually found, even beyond that, I found myself noticing that there's more thoughtfully planned beats to the story than I gave it credit for the first time. They're just pretty sloppily executed throughout. So you can't really appreciate what the movie's trying to do. But when you start to take it apart, you go, oh, it does have a scene where the romance develops. Like the fact that there's a romance between the two leads of this movie that actually develops over the course of 4 or 5 scenes where like it plants a seed and it warms that up and then it grows to a full on where the two of them come together. That's a lot. If you just looked at the box cover of this movie, you'd be like, there's no way that the romantic leads get that much time together. And yet they do. They just don't do it very well. So it's not that fun, but it's in the script. It's not as junky as a movie as you might perceive it as at first watch.
Yeah, I think there's problems with the script for sure, but it's written by Stephen King, who knows how to write and certainly knows how to write romance. I think that's one of the things people would never say he can't do. Endings, it's another story.
Yeah.
But romance, he knows how to do. And the execution of all of this is just, like you said, sloppy, almost like whoever was directing it was drunk off his ass. Is that a segue for a monologue, perhaps?
Yeah, I would like to hear about the state of mind of Stephen King when he made this movie.
Let's get into it. In the summer of 1986, Stephen King did what most best-selling authors could only dream of doing. He directed a movie, and not just any movie, a moron movie, in King's own words. Maximum Overdrive was King's first and last time behind the camera, an adaptation of his own short story Trucks, in which machines everywhere suddenly gain sentience and start violently murdering people. If that sounds fun, you're right. It could have been. Instead, it turned into a production nightmare fueled by gallons of beer, mountains of cocaine, and what can only be described as a complete lack of adult supervision.
What they needed was maximum oversight.
Filming took place in Wilmington, North Carolina, chosen because it was a right-to-work state where producer Dino De Laurentiis could hire non-union crews on the cheap. King showed up for production by riding his motorcycle from Maine to the studio lot, where security refused to let him in because they thought he was a random drifter ranting about killer trucks.
When in fact, he was a very specific drifter ranting about killer trucks.
That set the tone for the entire shoot. King was reportedly drunk before most morning call times and coked up for most creative decisions, including ignoring multiple safety warnings that ultimately led to cinematographer Armando Nanuzzi losing an eye in a freak lawnmower accident. Originally, King wanted Bruce Springsteen to star, but De Laurentiis, unfamiliar with the boss, insisted on Emilio Estevez instead, or Martin's son as he called him.
Emilio was bound to shine. He was born with a natural sheen.
Estevez, fresh off hits like The Breakfast Club and St. Elmo's Fire, seemed like a smart choice, until it became clear that the real star of the movie was the giant Green Goblin-faced truck, barreling through a script that barely existed. Released in July 1986, Maximum Overdrive opened in 7th place and quickly disappeared from theaters, losing about $5 million. Critics savaged it, audiences stayed away, and King promptly disowned the film, calling it a learning experience, and also admitting he was so high he didn't even know what he was doing most of the time.
Talk about higher education.
Today, Maximum Overdrive lives on as a cult oddity, a cocaine-fueled fever dream where vending machines, lawnmowers, and semi-trucks declare war on humanity and win. It's a disaster in almost every conceivable way, but like all great cinematic disasters, it's never boring.
Yeah, it sucks that there's a real life Stephen King tragedy in the middle of this with the cinematographer losing his eye. Was it his? Did I read correctly? That was his dominant eye that he used on camera lenses?
Correct. Yeah. He still worked after that, but he suspected he lost out on like really high profile jobs because of it. Producers and directors didn't think he could still do the same things he was always able to do. So that is a very, for such a goofy, silly movie, it sucks that there is this very real tragedy attached to it.
Yeah, it's a bummer. Honestly, when you look at how much destruction there is in the plot, the stunts they did, trucks crashing through things, exploding left and right, you almost feel, I don't want to diminish Armando Nanuzzi's loss, but you almost feel like they got away lucky that they didn't kill some stuntmen or some more crew with all the shit they were doing.
Yeah, isn't that kind of the story of Rust? A non-union crew hired on the cheap and then tragedy happens, but that was obviously much more severe.
Yeah.
But the actual story behind the tragedy is so stupid. It's even more infuriating. It was that scene with the lawnmower chasing, what's the kid's name? Deke through the neighborhood. And Nuzzi was just like, can we take the blade out? We don't need the blade on the lawnmower. You don't see it.
Yeah.
That's how lawnmowers are. You don't see the blade spinning, but King was like, for authenticity's sake, we need it. And they argued about it back and forth. And finally they went with the blade. And of course, it struck a piece of wood that I guess flew into his eye. And that was it. So not really a freak accident if you were warned about it beforehand and were like, no, I'm going to still do it anyway. That's almost less of an accident at that point.
Yeah, it's a reckless accident.
The guy's sitting there like, this is a bad idea. Yeah, that's negligence.
Yeah. It puts a bummer on this movie, which we were ready to just joke about and tear apart. And it makes me suspect, beyond even the financial success and the personal lessons that Stephen King learned directing this and deciding never to go back to it, it feels like that one thing could have been really what sat with him and made him feel like, I shouldn't do this.
Yeah, there's no indication in anything you read about Stephen King that he lacks empathy. By all accounts, he's a pretty sensitive, empathetic guy. So I'm sure that sat with him for many years and maybe even to this day. And there was a quote I sent you from King that I love to bring this back around to a slightly happier place, but he described it as a moron movie and considered the process a learning experience, after which he never intended to direct again. I was like, I love that he called it a learning experience. And what he learned was that he will never direct a movie again.
Don't do that.
It's not like he's like, I know how I'm going to do things differently next time. He's like, I'm just not going to do it next time. There won't be a next time. My kind of grand thesis of this movie, which I revealed to you over text message, and I'll expand. I was like, when you look at this movie that he directed and also all the movies he's written, I'm just not sure he understands how to write for the screen. He's never really written a good screenplay, and he always seems to struggle to match the tone of what he's trying to convey to what's on the page.
Yeah, it's a good question. He's definitely a writerly writer. Not that he's overly flowery or literary in his ambitions, but he likes the forms, and novels are very different things from movies, and so large compromises need to be made to adapt novels to the screen. And likewise with short stories, this one was about the right size and scope, I would say, to be adapted to the screen, because it's really about a couple days, a limited cast of characters. You don't need to get inside the minds of all the people, but still just the topics, even the idea of machines and specifically trucks coming to life, it somehow works on the page in ways that's hard to depict on the screen. Like when electric knives and hair dryers and Walkmans are killing people in a short story, that can be chilling. And when you show it on the screen, it can be very hard to recreate that same feeling.
I think Christine came the closest to fulfilling that promise. And Christine is obviously, it's a super dated movie now. But the first time I saw it, I think it hit me the way, and King didn't direct that, obviously. I don't even think he even wrote the screenplay for that one, but it's obviously based on his novel. But it's a similar concept, a car that's possessed and wants to kill people. But then like they did some investigating into the car's history and stuff. And like this movie's just kind of like the comet, you know, so there's also no deeper meaning behind it. And they try to imbue some meaning with the waitress who keeps screaming, "We made you." And then AC/DC's like, that's a good idea for a song.
That's right.
Give me fucking star. I got qualms about AC/DC, my man.
Qualms.
Not with your wonderful rendition of an AC/DC song that you played under the monologue, just all the other ones in the movie.
Okay.
Which I did yell at you for making it too good, using too many of the drums on the drum set and playing too competently when you recorded your version.
Well, I don't want to start a fight on this podcast, but I have a much higher opinion of AC/DC than you do, and we may have to leave that an unsettled matter by the end of this episode, but we will talk about what is good and what is mostly bad about the soundtrack of this movie.
I will fight about this. I'm okay with that. Okay. That's what it's got to be. That's what it's got to be. I will not agree to disagree. No, I'm somewhat joking. What the fuck was I talking about? I forgot.
I don't know, but talking about the premise, I think that overall it's something good. You know, the original short story was called Trucks. I'm sure it had some of these other things coming to life in it too. But Stephen King knew early on that he should fear trucks. Pet Sematary is also about fear of big trucks.
I don't know if that's what it's about, but It's a part of it.
It's a big part. It's like the inciting incident of Pet Sematary is living on this road where these scary ass trucks come by. So like Stephen King has a generous fear of trucks.
Rightfully so, after he almost got fucking killed by a minivan.
Exactly. He was staging like he was got by a fast moving vehicle. And they're a good image. There are parts of this movie where characters are being menaced by driverless trucks. And I'm like, that's cool. That kind of works. Like I can get how that's cool and scary, but they're very small parts because he's not as good at conveying that on film as you might hope.
Right. When the trucks are still until they're not, that's when it works. When the trucks are just driving in circles all day, like takes away a lot of their menace.
They get a little silly. That's where it gets into, like you said, the Comet is like a 1950s B-movie sci-fi premise. You know, it kind of cheeses it up and turns it into a very soft sci-fi where we don't really have to explain it. Like, how is the electric knife moving by itself? That's not a function of the knife that it can like crawl around. There's just so many plot and logic holes in this movie that we actually have to really check ourselves not to get caught up trying to point them all out because there's no point. It's not that kind of movie.
Yeah, you have to make a gentleman's agreement with your brain to just be like, don't worry about all that. Let's just focus on the meat and potatoes. There are a few that I will call out as we get to them because they're so egregious, you kind of have to.
And they're funny.
And they're yeah, that's the other part is that sometimes it's fun to be like making fun of a movie that's got this kind of tone. It almost feels like the intended way to watch it.
Yeah.
Should we get into the plot of the movie such as it is?
Yeah, let's start to lay out some of these plot holes so we can poke our fingers in them.
All right.
On June 19th, 1987, the Earth began passing through the tail of a rogue comet. It was due to exit the cloud 7 days later. This is the story of the strange things that happened to a certain small group of people during that time. Bill, played by Emilio Estevez, is a young man on parole who just started a job as a line cook at the Dixie Boy truck stop, a little diner and gas station on a stretch of country highway in North Carolina. Bill just found out his boss, Hendershot, played by Pat Hingle, is an exploitative son of a bitch, but Bill has to suck it up because he needs the job. Meanwhile, in a nearby town, machines start to go haywire, including the local drawbridge, which opens unexpectedly, causing a fatal multi-vehicle pileup. Then weird stuff starts happening at the truck stop, too. Gas pumps and pinball machines go on the fritz, taking on a mind of their own and injuring random staff and customers. An electric carving knife attacks sassy waitress Wanda June, and Bill has to jump in to save her. Then an attractive young woman named Brett, played by Laura Harrington, arrives at the truck stop, having hitched a ride with a sleazy traveling Bible salesman named Loman. Two newcomers are forced to scramble to safety inside as an ominous semi-truck with a green goblin face for a grill starts up on its own and tries to run them down. Back in town, a Little League baseball team's victory celebration is ruined as their coach is killed when a vending machine starts violently shooting out soda cans. One player, a boy named Deke, escapes on his dirt bike as a steamroller smashes in through the outfield fence, crushing his teammate. As Deke rides through quiet residential streets, he sees that his neighbors have all been killed by a variety of lawnmowers and home appliances. Deke gets chased by a murderous ice cream truck, but he escapes. Finally, while stopping for gas at a different roadside station a few miles away, a newlywed couple named Kurt and Connie barely survive a harrowing encounter with a killer tow truck. The frightened lovebirds head back out on the road and make their way down the highway towards the Dixie Boy truck stop.
Does Stephen King have beef with Death of a Salesman? I didn't even gather that the fucking sleazy Bible salesman was named Loman.
Yeah, you don't notice that in the movie, but when I looked up his name, I'm like, oh, he's doing a reference there.
Stephen King's like, I know one salesman. That's who I'm naming this guy after.
And he's gonna die.
So I wanted to point out that the first character who gets a line in this movie is none other than Stephen King himself.
Yeah.
When a vending machine calls him an asshole, which is like pretty low stakes for this movie where everyone else is dying horrible deaths. Stephen King just gets called an asshole as far as we can tell.
Yeah, it's a funny little bit. It feels a bit much. You're like, isn't the director supposed to wait for his cameo and pop up unobtrusively somewhere in the middle?
I feel like you shouldn't put a cameo of yourself in your first movie either. Let's see if you got what it takes first. Let's see if you got the goods. It feels a little like hubris.
It does.
But we can't mention enough that he was drunk and on drugs for all of this process. So
yeah, and his acting was actually fine. Like he pulls that scene off. He just has one line. He yells to his wife, honey, the machine is...
He calls her like Sugar Butt or something, though. He's got like a funny name for her. Everyone in this movie has funny names for everybody. I've actually never had a problem with King's acting. He pops up in a lot of stuff, some of which are adaptations of his work, some of which are more like homage. And he's never been like distractingly bad, so I'm not surprised that he managed it. But then we get to one of my favorite scenes in the movie, which is this drawbridge fiasco, which was actually pretty well done. Practical effects, no AC/DC soundtrack, some like actual tension at times, and also some laughs. It was pretty cool to see. I don't know that a shot like this gets made now. It probably gets made in a very different way with a lot of computer generated special effects, but it was actually cheaper to do it for real back then.
The drawbridge opens without having stopped the traffic, so there's a bunch of people people all along the spans of this bridge that are becoming more and more vertical. And the motorcyclist, the first to go, sliding down, and that looks scary. And he falls in the water. Actually, I don't know how he fell in the water. He should have fallen back down towards the land.
A lot of it doesn't make sense with physics. Like, why are they falling through the open crack between the two sides of the drawbridge when it's tilting them backwards?
Yeah. But for the most part, they are sliding down and like crashing into each other at the base of the bridge rather than in the water like the random physics-defying motorcyclist.
Of course, there's a watermelon truck.
There's a watermelon truck. And that was an example of a cool horror moment where the watermelons went from silly Gallagher watermelon smashing party to scary. Like, that watermelons might break my windshield and cut me open. Like, it was a good transition from, oh, this is silly food fight that's happening into this is getting freaky. These cars are crunching together and people are getting smashed.
It was one of two moments in the movie that I can point to where I feel like it inched up to being an actual horror movie and not just like a comedy horror. But I think both moments are held back by the soundtrack, personally. And I know we have differing thoughts about AC/DC as a band, but I think my issue with them scoring a horror movie is that they only make one kind of song. And whether you like that song like you do or you don't like I do, they got one kind of song, which isn't exactly like creeping and sinister. You know, it's hard to build tension with the four on the floor.
Yeah. They didn't pull a Trent Reznor is what you're saying and become full-blown movie composers. They just kind of did some jams.
Some of these songs had to be like, they didn't write Hell's Bells for the fucking Maximum Overdrive soundtrack, right? So like they just used some of their songs at times, I'm thinking.
Yeah, the soundtrack album has one new song, which is Who Made Who, which you already referenced, is based on something from the movie.
Which was a hit too, I think, because I remember hearing it on the radio when I was like younger. Or maybe that was a different AC/DC song, so they all sound the fucking same.
This is definitely the generic period of AC/DC. Like, for me, Back in Black is an all-time great album, but outside of that, there's not a ton that I like. And especially this is already becoming later era AC/DC, which it's like if you started listening to the Stones in the late 80s, you would be like, this band sucks. They're just recycled, rehashed old rock music.
Was that like the Start Me Up era?
No, that's like after that. I actually love Start Me Up and I love all of Tattoo You, but then when it was like Steel Wheels or whatever, and they started doing songs like Mixed Emotions and Rock in a Hard Place that were just like parodies of old Stones.
Give me Can't You Hear Me Knocking.
Yeah, exactly.
Play with Fire. That's the good stuff.
This is not that era for AC/DC, and they're not that good at soundtrack stuff. There's some stuff that's just really inappropriate, which we'll get to when we get to the neighborhood scene.
But you also pointed out that they got the full service from AC/DC for this movie. They didn't just write some songs. They did sound effects too.
Yeah, they did like
ree. But it's just like Angus Young. Like
they did one attempt to do the psycho string stab things with guitar.
Doesn't work.
And it's just, it doesn't work. It's too much. No. And like you pointed out in the notes, the movie actually only builds tension when it turns off the rock music and lets it go score free for a little bit.
Yeah, this was a good crash course in how important sound is for building tension and dread in a horror movie, because you just don't have it and the movie feels safer for it in like a bad way.
It underscores the sort of pulpy comic book nature of the movie, but you and I both wanted less of that. We wanted some real thrills and chills, and AC/DC mostly undercuts that throughout this movie. So I'm in agreement with you on that.
Let's talk about Martin's boy, who we also talked off mic about this. This was the first time I really saw Emilio Estevez as Martin Sheen's son. I knew Emilio Estevez from like the Mighty Ducks primarily. That was when I met him.
Okay.
And that was like how I always thought of him. And in the movie, he was already like a washed up late 30s guy, I want to say.
Okay.
And but so seeing young like heartthrob Emilio Estevez, I was like, oh, he was like a handsome little dude.
He was.
Like good looking guy. So I was kind of shocked.
Yeah, there's a bunch of shots where you're like, that just looks like Martin Sheen. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. He looks more like young Martin Sheen than young Charlie Sheen does, I would say.
Charlie was super handsome too, but Emilio had his dad's eyes. There's scenes where they bring it out. So I guess we got to give Stephen King a little credit, or Nannuzzi or whatever his name was, for putting that young movie star's face on screen in a way that you're like, oh, this guy has star quality.
Yeah. And pretty well cast too. Like
yes.
You buy him as like a down on his luck line cook, ex-con type of dude. So overall, no qualms with Emilio Estevez in the lead role. And like we mentioned, he's one of 3 characters that King wants you to like, because outside of these 3 characters, everyone else is just about the broadest caricature of a human being you've ever seen in your entire life.
Yeah.
The other character he wants you to, one of the other 2 characters he wants you to like is Brett, played by Laura Harrington. She is the co-lead and the love interest for Bill.
Yep.
And she's got a real kind of Linda Hamilton vibe in the early parts of this movie. She's a badass. She carries around a straight razor. The Bible salesman keeps hitting on her. She keeps threatening to disembowel or castrate him in interesting ways. And she was great at that. She did, as you pointed out here, there are some scenes that are a little more emotional that maybe weren't in her wheelhouse.
Yeah, I came away with the impression that she has a lot of charisma. She's super cute. They make a really good couple together. Like you believe that they're in a place as young people in this world where they could fall into this relationship on the spur of the moment, which is often hard to pull off in a movie where it takes place in a short timeline. You're like, those people aren't going to get together in 4 hours, but it works. You kind of just buy both of them. When she has to cry and say, I'm scared, I'm like, well, that was weird. But she's also like a little bit of a weirdo, which fits with the character. She's hitchhiking down to Florida. She's a drifter herself.
Big red flag right off the bat. She wants to go to Florida.
And so I just bought her as this slightly weird young chick who's got her own thing going on. And the two of them fall into this tough spot together and they find each other. It worked for me.
I also liked that she seems to be about 3 inches taller than Emilio Estevez. And as a wife guy with a tall wife, I appreciated that I was being represented on screen.
They're a cute couple that way.
Thank you. You talk about me and my wife, Jamie.
You guys are a cute couple too, for sure. But Emilio and Laura were, he's like, would it be okay if I put my arm around you? And then he has to reach up and put his arm around her.
Yeah, he's getting on his tippy toes to give her a hug. And then the third character the movie wants us to like is played by Halter Graham. He's Deke, the young Little League All-Star who his father claims can hit a ball 250 feet.
Impressive.
But he gets the other sequence that I referenced as being maybe a good horror movie sequence in a slightly better movie. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, though. We got to talk about the Little League game because there's some fucking mayhem that happens at this Little League game. They win their game. Their coach goes to get them all soda. And God bless this coach. Very generous of him to want to buy his team sodas. I see why he's a Little League coach and maybe not like a high school coach because he's got reflexes for shit. When the first soda can flies out and hits him in the nuts, he just kneels down right in front of the vending machine that has been shooting cans at him at high velocity. And it's comical at first when he's getting hit in like the stomach and the balls.
Right.
It's kind of, even the kids are kind of like, ah. And then one hits him so hard in the head, I feel like his neck broke.
Yeah.
Like it swings back so fast. And then the kids start realizing, oh, this is not a joke anymore. But then I'm pretty sure it was Deke. There was some kid who was like, Coach, are you okay? And Coach just has this gaping wound in his fucking forehead. And he's clearly dead.
The circle of the Coke can that crushed his forehead open. He's definitely dead, but Deke has his little hero moment. He grabs the catcher's mask so that doesn't happen to him to try to see if he can possibly save his coach. So you know this is a good kid who's got courage under fire.
Literally.
Then when the steamroller breaks through the outfield fence, that was actually super cool because you don't see it coming. It's like you see the fence with the scoreboard on it, and all of a sudden this gigantic steamroller bashes through it and rolls over a little kid in the grass.
And you see at least the beginnings of it, which I thought it would cut away. That's probably the coolest kill in the movie, sad for that little boy.
Yeah, that was a cool kill.
Cool kills.
Young Deke is surrounded by pretty much the coolest kills in the movie.
That steamroller scene, another reason I think it worked is because it was moving with such purpose, whereas a lot of the other trucks or vehicles we see moving on their own are just kind of lackadaisical.
Yeah.
But this thing was like, he smelled blood and he was going for it. Like he was hauling ass.
This thing's
and like
hauling.
actually chasing these kids. I didn't know steamrollers could go that fast.
Exactly. That's what makes it scary. Like the steamroller comes through the fence and it's like bumping over bumps, and I didn't know they had that gear. It was clearly operating in maximum overdrive at that moment.
Hey, yeah, I'm more familiar with the Austin Powers steamrollers. That's the speed I'm accustomed to seeing.
This is the opposite of that.
This thing is fucking moving. But cool moment. Yeah, the whole Little League sequence is pretty cool. And then it gets to the neighborhood of death where he's trying to get back to his house and is noticing all his neighbors slain in horrific ways. And that was it could have been haunting. It could have worked really well, except for the fucking AC/DC ass soundtrack going on in the background, undermining any tension.
That was the single most incongruous music cue because they picked one of their sexy strut stomp beats in a thing that should have been like Creeping Dread. It's like, bam, bam.
That's Metallica.
Is it?
Creeping Death.
Oh, okay. It's absolutely the wrong tone.
I expected like Betty Boop to be having like a feathered boa on the stage, high stepping.
That was like a sexy stomping rock song. And there's nothing that matches that emotion in the scene. The scene is like, this neighborhood is, first of all, too quiet. Why is it too quiet? He's going down the street. He's peering in the windows. What's going on? It should be Creeping Dread. It should be a slowly building tension scene. And it's a stomping, sexy strut. It's only, like you said, when they turn that off that the scene starts to get scary.
And they turn it off for our second use of a creepy ice cream truck in as many episodes. We get the creepy little ding 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 ding, which is creepy in the right context.
Yeah, I think it's a couple episodes back now, but After Hours.
Oh, right, yeah.
In After Hours, we were haunted by the sound of approaching ice cream truck meant certain death, and it does for this kid. And that ice cream truck is cool. That's another place where the idea of haunted trucks works. You see it. It's alone on this residential street, and empty residential streets have that creep factor anyway. That's what worked for Halloween and stuff. We know that's like easy to stimulate that sense of
It Follows, I feel like, took advantage of that too.
Exactly. So that's working here. You see this truck coming down the street. There's nobody driving. And then when it gets close, you see this splatter of like blood and hair on the grill and another little bicycle embedded in the grill for a second. And you're like, oh shit, this thing is going around killing children and this kid is next. And it's fun.
Let's talk about Curtis and Connie,
Yeah.
the newlyweds, who are, I think King might want us to like them. I'm on the fence about these two.
They go back and forth between annoying sort of comic relief or like agitators. And then Kurt becomes a core helper to doing the heroic stuff. So you're not sure how to feel about them.
Yeah, he's Bill's kind of consigliere, for lack of a better term. But he's also a fucking pervert who wants to see his new wife go to the bathroom all the time. So what a weird thing.
It's the first thing we learn about this happy pair of lovebirds driving in their just married car.
This is their wedding day, by the way. Yeah.
I gotta pee. Can you pull over?
No, she doesn't say I have to pee. She says, I gotta use the ladies. And he goes, can I watch? She goes, no. So Connie's played by Lisa Simpson, or Yeardley Smith. And King's direction to her seemed to be act normal and then just scream as loud as you can sometimes for no reason. And she was like, all right, I got it. I'm on it. And she did that.
Yes. She starts out as the normal one in this first scene where they pull over and they get attacked by an old tow truck, which is also one of the trucks that's kind of scary that I dug it when it pulls out and starts barreling towards him. And she's the sympathetic one in the first scene. And because Yeardley Smith, I don't know how you say her name, was Lisa Simpson, I started with a lot of goodwill towards her. And I was actually like, Kurt is a dick because she's being reasonable. He's walking around corners. First, there's like a dead employee at the gas station and he walks around the corner to check it out. And she's like, what's going on? Is he dead? What's going on, Kurt? And he just like stops talking to her. And I know that it's like designed to inflate the dramatic tension of the scene, but I'm like, they're trying to tell us that Kurt is an asshole to his wife and leaves her scared. And then he gets almost run over by the truck. And again, she's like, are you dead? Kurt, are you there? Because she can't see him. He's behind the truck. And he again just doesn't say anything. Like, damn it. Like, answer your wife when she's freaking out.
That feels like an inexperienced director undermining his own characters for, like you said, dramatic tension.
Yeah, like he's trying to draw out the tension of not knowing. But we know, so we just think, because we see Kurt's lying there and he's okay. And like, why is he being like that? And then it's not really the story because then he comes around the truck and they have a happy moment and they're not really a couple that doesn't talk to each other. But then in each subsequent scene, she screams more and she has a very piercing shriek. It's a lot to take.
It's not like she's even written worse as the movie goes on. If you actually pay attention to her lines, she maintains being the reasonable, level-headed one most of the way. It's just that she fucking screams randomly and it's a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think her character ever becomes unlikable, but the performance becomes unbearable at points when you're just like, I need like a 20-minute break from this person.
It kind of makes sense because I guess they have Wanda June. Wanda June is an angry yeller. Brett, as the main woman in this, is not a scream queen. She doesn't scream once in this. She's a tough woman, and that's not her role to scream. So they're like, it's a horror movie. You got to have somebody do the high-pitched shrieking, and it fell on Connie.
Yeah, and Wanda June, we don't really know what she's like because from basically the moment we meet her, she's losing her bananas because a carving knife randomly attacked her.
That's true. And she did scream a bit when that happened.
Spray the most bright red blood I've ever seen all over the place. It looks like fucking Kool-Aid.
There's a lot of fake blood, and it does not look real on most of the truck grills and things that it's splashed liberally onto.
When the carving knife gets her in the arm, I didn't think twice about it. But when it starts like digging into her shoe, I was kind of like, I didn't like that.
Yeah, that was creepy. That was gross.
It got her a little bit. But she's okay. Like, she's still like doing her job because I guess Pat Hingle's character is no days off. You don't get to go home sick if you get attacked by a carving knife.
No, like they tie a rag around her arm and she's fine the rest of the movie until she decides she has to confront the trucks face to face.
She wasn't even trying to negotiate with them or anything. She just wanted to yell at them. It's not going to go well.
She wanted to yell at them. She lost her shit.
Who made who?
Should we hear about these further happenings?
Sure. At the truck stop, injured employee Duncan decides he has to try to go into town to look for his son Deke. But when he tries to cross the parking lot, another empty truck revs up and runs him over, killing him. Then the Bible salesman Loman goes out to yell at the non-existent truck driver, and a truck chases him across the lot, slamming into him and knocking him into a ditch by the side of the road. Then Kurt and Connie drive up, just having fled another murderous truck on the highway, but the possessed semi-trucks have become patrolling the Dixie Boy in a constant circle. They try to sneak through the blockade, but they're clipped by a truck, and their car flips. Bill and Brent run out to rescue the couple and manage to get them inside with a little help from Hendershot, who blasts a truck with a bazooka he retrieved from his secret weapon stash in the basement. When night falls, Bill and Brett find a cot and consummate their romantic attraction that's been building between them. Later, they and the others hear the screams of the wounded Loman from across the highway, and Bill hatches a plan to crawl through some drainage tunnels to rescue him. Bill and Curtis make it through the tunnels to the ditch and discover that Loman is too far gone to be saved, but they find young Deke and bring him back to the diner. Deke is crushed when he learns his dad is dead. The next morning, the trucks have stopped circling because they've run out of fuel. But then a bulldozer and an army vehicle with a mounted machine gun arrive and threaten the trapped humans with destruction and gunfire. When they try to fight back, the vehicle guns down both Hendershot and Wanda June. Then the machines honk out a message in Morse code. Of course they do, which Deke translates. The humans must come out and pump gas for all the trucks who need it. The motorized nightmare will continue. All right. So we did say that there are some plot holes we have to point out. These trucks have been driving for like nearly 24 hours and they just run out of gas. They've been driving in a circle for an entire day. They would have had to fill up before this, certainly.
I guess that sort of came to my mind, but on the list of ridiculous things that happened in this movie, I just went with it. I'm like, at least they got to that point. The timing is like maybe they picked the time of day for dramatic reasons and not for realism reasons, but I was okay with that.
Yeah, part of me, like, I did wonder about gas at some point when I was watching it the first time, and I was just kind of, maybe they're just going to let it go and not explaining. Like, it seems like a choice the movie could make theoretically, but, and realistically, we don't really need, like, you could have cut that sequence if you wanted to shorten the movie of them gassing up the trucks. I guess it's meant to show, though, like, how oppressive life would be if we let the machines take over.
The world has fully gone upside down. That happens in the third act when the humans are basically put to work in service of the machines, and it shows how quickly it grinds them down.
We've been doing it to the machines this whole time.
Exactly.
We felt no remorse. I'm on the machine side. That's it. I, for one, welcome our truck overlords.
Yeah. Oh boy, trucks are sneakier than you thought. Talk about things that are hard to believe.
Because they're lies.
Well, Duncan says, I got to go look for my boy Deke, star of the Little League team. And they're like, don't, Duncan, you sprayed yourself with diesel in the eyes. You can barely see. And I guess that's the reason that an enormous semi-truck is able to sneak up on him just out of nowhere. Like he bends down to pick up his keys and bam, the truck flattens him. They're like, Duncan, look out. And that got an actual laugh out of me when all of a sudden the truck slaps him down out of nowhere.
Yeah, Deke is no Matt Murdock. Let's just say he's not going to be the blind guy who still can get around okay. He gets his shit rocked. Which,
yeah,
decently cool kill. Watching, the blood splatter on the grill. Wasn't bad.
They smashed a guy, but he kind of rolls around. You see like a live actor rolling on the ground. So it wasn't like a full, am I advocating for a full pancake kill? But like they didn't smash him into unrecognizable meat. It just ran him over.
Yeah, are you saying that regretfully?
I don't know. I was like,
you wish they had?
Do I want more gore, more cool kills? It was just like a silly kill to me. You
could say that about a lot of parts of this movie.
That's true. It's all silly kills.
It's all silly from here on out. Kills notwithstanding.
Including the next big stunt, which is, this is when we find out that Hendershot has rocket launchers and shit in his basement.
Right.
Because our two heroes, Bill and Brett, run out to Kurt and Connie's flipped car to drag them out of there and run back into the station. And it looks like maybe they're not going to make it because a truck is bearing down on them. And then Hendershot pops out of the front door and fires a law rocket right over their heads. And that stunt, it is silly, like it's meant to be high-spirited and goofy. But when the four of them hit the dirt, it's a very old-timey action movie thing, almost like a 70s kind of stunt you would do where the four actors dive face first and the rocket goes over their head and blows up the truck.
Yeah, I was more confused about where the fucking bazooka came from, but luckily the movie is going to tell us that apparently Hendershot is planning for the end of days.
Yes.
He doesn't really ever explain why he has all this. He's just like, I got it at the getting place, to quote Llewellyn Moss. People are like, fuck you do with all this shit? And he also tries to play it off, I just got this one bazooka, I don't know. But then of course, he has a giant arsenal in his basement.
He's trying to keep it secret, but yeah, they let Bill and Brett speculate on it, but like they never come up with an actual reason in the story world, except Hendershot just likes weapons. And so he's got a basement full of grenades and rocket launchers and M16s and all kind of stuff.
That is kind of a king trope, though, as much as Loman is a king trope of the religious guy who's actually evil. And when he's put under stress, his true nature comes out, is like the small town shithead who's like a wannabe crime boss and is armed to the teeth for some reason. Comes up more often than you might think in king stuff.
It makes sense. It's also like a very practical character to have pop up if you're a horror and sci-fi writer when you need some way for people to, for instance, fight back a legion of trucks. Like they're not going to do it with the forks and spoons in the diner.
They didn't even try.
It's true.
So yeah, a bazooka is surely a handy thing to have in this situation, except what's the cutoff for what machinery is not usable by the Comet? Because the machine gun on the back of the truck, it's not attached to the accelerator of the truck. It's just a machine gun.
Right.
If they could fire that, why can't they control the bazookas and the rest of the guns?
Oh man, yeah, those are the questions you are not supposed to ask yourself.
Not supposed to ask those? Okay.
There's so many things that could have come to life that didn't. Everybody else's car, like the trucks are destroying the main character's cars, but like, why aren't the cars part of the legion of possessed vehicles?
Maybe they were, but they had too much of a bond with their owners. And they're like, no, I won't kill them. And they were like, you son of a bitch, you're traitors. There's like a whole other movie going on just between the machines that we don't get to see.
There's a lot going on there. But yeah, you got to just skate past those things. Otherwise, they'll drag you right down. But I did like Loman, who you mentioned becomes a classic King kind of villain, like a person who's first a semi-normal person, but is deeply stressed and injured, and then near death turns into basically a monster. I feel like that's something I've seen in King over and over. And he threatens to kill the kid. The kid comes crawling through the ditch and was like, "Mister, are you okay?" And then it's like, "I'll fucking kill you." And it's, oh, that's one of them King monsters of like very sick people who become secondary villains and somehow take on an evil persona when they're near death.
The character I was thinking of when we were talking about Loman was Mrs. Carmody from The Mist, which I think is like the high water mark for that kind of character in a King story. She's from The Mist, played by Marcia Gay Harden. Cool. A very terrifying performance. And like, you might argue she ends up being like the main villain of The Mist in addition to the monsters in The Mist, because she's just so scary in that role. But like, Loman ain't got that kind of juice.
No. The quality of the cast sadly falls off pretty fast after our stars. And he's kind of a stock, broadly drawn, goofy character. And then in this moment that could have been the chance where, oh, he turns from kind of a joke into something actually scary and evil, they did that whole thing in ADR. We might actually have to call out the ADR patrol on this movie.
Uh-oh, let's get him.
Okay.
ADR patrol.
Yeah, round him up, boys, because this was the chance. Like, this guy's covered in mud. He's beaten and bleeding and almost dead. And then he threatens to kill this kid. And his whole line's about, "Kid, I'll kill you." His face isn't on screen. I didn't notice that till second watch.
Do you see his face in that entire sequence, actually? Or is it just a suit?
No, you see him when he's inert and lying there. And Deke, the kid, is trying to like wake him up and go, Mister, are you okay? And then for some reason, and this is maybe something you could blame on King's state while he was shooting this, like he didn't get the coverage. Oh, we forgot to get a shot of Loman saying his line. So now we've got to just show his arm reaching out for the kid while he says his big scary lines. And then they cut back to the other guys who are coming out there. They think they're to rescue Loman, but they're actually going to rescue Deke. And like Loman is clinging to Deke's leg, but the other guys go, "Oh no, he's dead. He's dead now." He just literally 5 seconds ago, he said his big line where he came to life as a monster. They said, "Come here and help me. Drag me out of here or I'll kill you." And then 2 seconds later, they go, "Oh, that guy's dead. Leave him. Let's get out of here." And we're like, whoa.
It doesn't do a lot to enhance your intimidation factor. If you're like, if you don't drag me out of this tunnel I can't get out of on my own, I'm going to kill you. Because you're just like, I'll just leave you there then. I'll just run away. That's not like very threatening if you can't chase me.
No.
Yeah, there's a story there about what happened in that scene. Did he change the meaning of that scene in the edit, or did they just not get the coverage or something? Like, because he's already got his human villain with Hendershot. So maybe he thought like Loman's just a creep, but not an out villain, until in the edit he was like, oh, I guess we could use another like scary quote unquote scene.
That scene is a real mess. It doesn't make sense. And when you pull apart what could have been there, you're like, oh, big missed opportunity to do a fun, scary moment.
What are the odds they would have gotten it right anyway?
No, this was their best attempt. Speaking of gonzo moments, I don't know if you noticed this one. There's a bunch as the movie ramps up and the action gets bigger. They survive the night. They wake up the next morning and this bulldozer is making a racket because it's starting to smash Bubba Hendershot's car. And some idiot trucker, like there's a bunch of these idiot truckers wandering around the place the whole time that it feels like you never see the same guy twice.
Drinking tons of beer.
Yeah, eating shit and falling asleep with sandwiches on their belly. Like
very, very broad caricatures of truckers.
And then the weirdest one is some guy we've never seen before. When he hears the racket, comes out of the back room, slams open these two swinging doors, going, "What the fuck's going on?" And he slams the door so hard that both the windows shatter. And it's like, why is this guy being a drama queen and calling so much attention to himself? And he's nobody. He's a character.
He doesn't have a name. Yeah, just a guy.
We've never seen him before or after, but it's funny that he's the star of the movie in his own mind for 2 seconds, where he's like, I'm going to fucking smash these doors to get everybody to tell me what the hell's going on out here this morning.
Yeah, it's another situation where there's a whole other movie going on and that guy's the main dude. One thing I want, like, you just jogged my memory about the state of this truck stop. There's a couple things I want to call out though. First off, Frankie Faison as the owner of the Green Goblin rig. I love him. That's all I had. Love Frankie Faison.
Yes.
He's great. He's great too. He's He's got so much swag. So I would believe like a trucker could be a little mini celebrity because everyone's like, oh, hey, when he shows up. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, Handy's a star. They greet him when he shows up. And Frankie Faison, as you said, is an actor with a ton of presence and should have been a bigger part of this movie, right? You're like, oh, this is going to be like the secondary guy who helps the hero win the day. And then he's gone. Even right away when his truck is the first one taken over by the comet and it nearly kills someone. And he's at the back of the room. Like Bill, obviously they send Emilio Estevez's character out to investigate because he's the hero of the movie. But like Handy is standing in the back of this whole room of people going, what just happened to that truck? Did it drive itself? And he's like, yeah, it did because I got the keys. And it's like, well, why aren't you out there like looking at your truck to see what happened? He's like,
investigating, yeah.
He's like, well, I'm not in this movie right now, and I won't be except for a minute towards the end.
Yeah, nothing against Kurt, but I would have loved to see Bill and Handy team up.
Yeah,
be the main heroes of the movie.
Major missed opportunity with that.
The other thing I wanted to comment on, and these are both notes that I had that I forgot to put in the actual notes.
Sure.
So they don't actually apply to what's happening right now. But there is a scene where Kurt and Connie are talking to Loman. They're sitting at a table and he's trying to sell them Bibles.
Okay.
Remember the scene?
Yeah, vaguely.
I don't know who it is because it's in the middle of the table between them. Somebody is drinking a fucking 40 of Miller High Life. I was like, what an order. Like, first of all, what bar stocks 40 ounces of Miller High Life?
True.
And second of all, who orders one in the middle of the apocalypse? Don't you want to be a little bit sober so you can like save yourself? You have to like...
And those three at that table are not the, if it was a random trucker, I'd be like, okay, he got himself 40 somewhere. But yeah, that's, there's
interesting
some
choice.
questionable choices.
Yeah, I'm not sure that would have been my order, much as I love a good High Life. But yeah, that idiot trucker, I was like, I had that moment where I'm like, am I supposed to know who that is? Is that an important person? Because I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, it's just some dickhead being disruptive. Everyone's also asleep at that moment too. He wakes everybody up.
It's totally funny, but it's like, what is this guy smashing windows inside the diner at 6 a.m. to get his needs met? But speaking of unknown people, there are a number of unknown stuntmen playing truck drivers who get shot up when the M60 first unloads on the diner when the machine gun car decides to teach the humans who's in charge. And I just had to show my appreciation for the classic 80s machine gun stunt deaths, which is where a guy jiggles around, some squibs go off on his chest, or maybe not, maybe just some pre-applied blood is on his chest. And a guy kind of jiggles around to show that he's being shot by a machine gun. And then he sits down. Sitting down is the funniest part of that stunt work, but it's absolutely signature 80s move is to not even do it like a hard fall, but just like gently collapse backwards into a chair.
Such a vibe.
To show that you died and make a little noise.
God, I love that. That M60 is an evil gun, but some of the guns are good.
Yeah, some of the guns are cooperative and they're on the side of the humans.
How do you tell? It's a gamble. Can't know for sure until it's too late. All right, you ready to take us home?
Let's drive this convoy home.
All right.
A massive convoy of possessed trucks is moving south along the highway, and the people trapped at the Dixie Boy truck stop are forced to work all day in the blazing sun and 100-degree heat refueling the trucks. Exhausted at the end of their grueling day, Bill and the gang start to work on a plan to escape. Bill knows of a safe refuge, a small island just offshore where there's no vehicles at all. Bill goes back outside to resume pumping gas, but instead slips a grenade into the machine gun vehicle, blowing it up. As night falls, everyone from the truck stop slips into the tunnels and escapes across the highway just as the trucks descend on the Dixie Boy, smashing into the diner and blowing the gas station sky high. Armed with Hendershot's arsenal, the group makes their way across town to a marina to commandeer a sailboat. One guy's greed is his undoing when he stops to steal a ring from a dead woman and the Green Goblin truck sneaks up and runs him down. But Bill dispatches the evil truck with a well-aimed rocket, and he and Brett and the rest of the survivors board the sailboat and escape. In the credits, we learn that they were able to ride things out until the comet passed 6 days later.
What's the fucking guy's name? Brad? What's Brad's plan here? What kind of jewel economy do you think there's going to be? Like, theoretically, this is happening the world over.
Yes.
What the fuck are you going to do with one diamond ring? You going to go to the jeweler and trade it in for cash? Like, what jeweler? Everyone's dead, you fucking idiot. And now you are too.
Yeah, poor Brad. Alas, Brad. I knew him not, Horatio, because we have not met Brad until this scene, just like many of the people who die in this movie.
If you meet a character at 1 hour and 16 minutes into the runtime, you're probably like, that guy's going to live forever.
They go, where's Brad? And he's robbing a corpse. And then he's just fucking entranced by this diamond. It is the largest diamond you've ever seen. It's on this lady's finger and it's huge. It's like a ring pop. It's like it's comedy sized. And he's so entranced with it. He does not hear a very loud semi-truck come up behind him and sneaks up and splats him.
Yeah, they did not make electric semi-trucks at this juncture. So there was no silent semi-trucks. They're quite noisy. And
yeah, and Green Goblin was the loudest one. He had a signature growl that was scarier than everybody else's when he revved his engine.
Sure, I'll go along.
But they wrap it up quick. Bill sees Brad bite it and he jumps out and goes, adios, motherfucker. And he gets a perfectly timed Luke Skywalker rocket shot right into the goblin's mouth. And I was like, oh, they decided to do something realistic because it hits the grill of this truck and there's just a huge cloud of white smoke. And you're like, oh, that kind of looks like what it would look like if you disabled a semi-truck with a rocket and just blew its engine out. It would just kind of sit there surrounded in a cloud of smoke.
Yeah.
Then they cut back to it and so much pyro. I mean, this truck, the reason it's got a goblin on the front is it's like whatever Happy Toy Company.
It's toys.
It's full of toys.
Yeah.
And it's the most flammable toys you've ever imagined.
There's an even more egregious example of this in this section with our old friend, the ice cream truck.
Oh, yes. The scary ice cream truck comes back. This is before Bill gets the final shot. They got to give Curtis ones. And Curtis is like, I got this one. He's got an Uzi. And it's just another totally goofy moment. Something is happening there that they don't explain because he runs out into the street to face it down with his gun because he said, I got this. But then he gets in the street and he looks over at Brett and he acts confused for a second. Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, he forgot that he was supposed to shoot it, I guess.
They look at each other and then they look back and they start shooting a few bullets at an ice cream truck from 100 yards away and it fucking detonates, man. All that flammable ice cream just goes up and it does a front flip when it explodes.
So I think I have an idea for why it exploded. Do you know why?
No.
It was full of bomb pops.
Oh, I saw it coming too late. You know how like when a semi-truck sneaks up on you and kills you?
Just like that. Just like that.
That's right. When I saw your joke coming, it was too late for me to do anything.
Oh, I thought of that while you were reading the model, which is why I was like, we got to go back to the ice cream truck. I got the zinger teed up.
Wait, we had an ice cream truck in Bubble Boy too. They're fucking haunting us in the blast zone.
Yeah, but it was a nice ice cream truck in that one, at least.
Yeah, that was a very positive.
It was a racially insensitive ice cream truck, but at least the truck itself wasn't trying to kill you.
No, that truck had good spiritual energy, unlike this one, which just wanted to kill children. I feel like we're losing steam here. Can we even ask the questions that must be asked about how they sail off at the end?
Well, it is a sailboat, at least. Did you
Yes.
notice that the rest of them were all sailboats?
No, there was a bunch of boats in that marina which didn't have sails, which raised one of the questions of
Yeah.
don't motorboats start up and attack you just like trucks do?
They do. That's unfortunate. I was hoping that they'd covered their ass on that one. Alas, especially because the rich woman that Brad steals the ring off of is dead at the marina. She clearly had the same idea of I'll be safe on the water. Something got her at the marina. Maybe it was a boat.
I think it was just her power windows on her Volvo kind of choked her out.
Oh, it just did the whole, yeah. Why did this movie need a pre and post script? Did we really need the text scroll before and after this movie? It's not that complicated.
It was so clunky too. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. You don't need to wrap up this movie. Movies that end with the heroes sailing off on a boat give you just the right amount of information to go, wow, it feels like they escaped. I wonder what happened the rest of their lives. You don't need to write what's basically like a Poochie send-off level Chiron on the end, which was like 2 days later, a large UFO was destroyed by a Russian weather satellite armed with lasers and nukes. And I'm like,
what? Okay.
First of all, what's a large UFO? How do you know what's the
compared to what?
That made no sense to me for so many reasons. I'm like, are there no professional writers associated with this movie? Why was it ending text crawl written so badly? It was like the clunkiest English sentences even. I think Stephen King must have been passed out.
Even the intro one was pretty bad.
Yeah.
I love that. Another thing I want to point out is this opens with a scrawl that says a film by Stephen King. And I said, this is not a film. You can't call this a film legally. I think that's against the law. It's maybe a movie at best.
An elevated flick.
Yeah, we're in flick territory for sure. It's Maximum Overdrive. I even had fun just like feeling, what is this movie doing? Fuck, who is this for? But like, I had fun looking at it through that lens.
Yeah.
Like, are you serious? Really? And that's okay in my book. I'll take it over a lot of the other stuff we've been watching lately.
It's a drunk guy's idea of a funny action sci-fi thriller. It doesn't achieve any of those things, but there is a little bit of heart to it. I think a lot of it due to Emilio Estevez, Laura Harrington, and whatever was working in Stephen King's brain that made it a little bit fun at times.
I mean, he wrote some good books during this period of his life, so it's not like his creativity was shot. I think he just needed a good editor. Not like to edit the scenes in the movie, but like to edit everything he does. He needed like a life editor,
Right.
all his decisions.
It underscores the idea. You talked about the difference between writing books and writing screenplays. There's a difference in the process too, right? Directing a movie is like the most collaborative thing. You're the head of all these departments and it's this huge hierarchical collaborative event. And writing books is you lock yourself in a fucking room and get as drunk as you want. And eventually you hand in pages to an editor. So it was just the wrong medium for him.
If you ever decide to write a book, I'm here for you. You don't have to just lock yourself in a room and get drunk.
Thank you.
I can help you.
But can I do that? Because it sounds kind of fun.
There's worse ways to spend your time. It was Hemingway that said, write drunk, edit sober.
Yeah.
Speaking of writing drunk, you want to hear what happened to some of these people?
Yeah, for sure. Where'd they go after this?
So I decided to focus on King's film career because there's much to be said about his writing career, but I wanted to focus on what he's done on the screen. He wrote and directed this, of course. This is the only movie he ever directed, like we mentioned. Has written several screenplays and television teleplays. All were adapted from his novels or short stories, except for two. He wrote a short film called Michael Jackson's Ghosts in I think it was the late 80s. And the 1992 vampire movie Sleepwalkers was an original story by him. His last screenwriting credit was 2016's Cell, starring John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson. This is another good example of what you were talking about, of how killer trucks can seem scary on the page, but falls flat when you put it on screen. This was about killer cell phones.
Oh,
If you use your cell phone, it sends like a signal to your brain that turns you into a zombie.
that could be fun.
It was a good book. The movie was pretty regrettable, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
But then again, I haven't seen it in a long time. But it was supposed to be a theatrical release, and then I think they saw it and were like, never mind. And I went to VOD.
Wow.
So Estevez was already a big name at this point. I didn't realize that. He'd already been in The Outsiders, Repo Man, and The Breakfast Club, and St. Elmo's Fire. So
Oh, wow.
those are like his big movies aside from The Mighty Ducks.
Yeah, all his teenage star stuff.
Yeah. St. Elmo's Fire, was that also John Hughes?
I don't know. I grouped them together in my mind, but I never watched St. Elmo's Fire, so I don't really know what happens in it.
Oh, no, it was a Joel Schumacher, actually. Interesting. Doesn't feel like a Joel Schumacher movie.
Was it shot by Jan de Bont?
Let's see. Let's find out.
Cinematography, Stephen H. Burham. No.
Stephen Burham. Yeah.
Sorry.
Shot by Jan de Bont. Anywho, after this, he would go on to do the Young Guns movie and its sequel, which I've never
cool.
seen.
Okay.
Those are like the Naked Gun for a different generation, right?
No, they're not like parody movies. They're
Oh.
just like reinvented Western with young people, I think. I hadn't seen them since they came out.
Interesting. I don't know why. Oh, maybe I'm thinking of Top Secret, the one that Val Kilmer was in. That was
Top Secret is absolutely a Zucker Brothers zany nonsense movie.
But then he would go on to do the Mighty Ducks movies. And I was surprised to notice this because I am running the series of Mission Impossible to see the final one in theaters. And you have some catching up to do. He's in the original Mission Impossible.
I did not remember that.
He's part of the team, one of the main dudes.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, he's right there with Tom Cruise and everything, hanging out. He's like a little bit of a jokester in that movie. He's pretty good in it. And then he was also on season 1 of the Mighty Ducks TV series called Game Changers. He declined to return for season 2 due to what was described as a contract dispute, which was later revealed to be mainly about his refusal to get the COVID-19 vaccine.
Oh,
So-
that's unfortunate.
One of the downsides of working on this podcast is that you have to learn a lot about the actors you watch. It's not always a good thing for your perception of them.
Interesting facts. But to your point, at the start of this, I didn't know that he had already completed all those other movies and become the star that he was. This feels like a movie that was like discovering Emilio Estevez, although it's apparently not that. But he looks super young and it looks like, oh, this is a new actor on the scene. But I guess he was pretty established.
Yeah, maybe he was just like also the quality of the cameras used was lower. But I think movies like The Breakfast Club and St. Elmo's Fire look newer than this movie does.
Yeah.
So I kind of placed them in the late 80s in this movie as like a precursor to those. But I guess it's actually the other way around.
Yeah, it's a little surprising.
Pat Hingle, who plays, how do you say that guy's name?
Hendershot? Was it
Hendershot. It's a weird name.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was Hendershot.
Hard to retain.
He just called everyone Bubba. So I always thought his name was Bubba,
His name might be Bubba.
which would be funny if you just called everyone Ian.
Yeah, I struggled with that too, but there is one point. I think he gets on the radio and goes, "This is Bubba Hendershot." I'm like, "Oh, you're Bubba too? Okay."
I'm not making that up. He calls everyone Bubba.
He calls everyone Bubba, and then he calls himself Bubba. It's just, I don't know. He's still in some sort of infantile stage where he can't distinguish himself from others.
He does not have object permanence yet. But he'd been acting since 1954 and
Wow.
is, at least what I knew him from, he was Commissioner Jim Gordon from Tim Burton's original Batman, the 1989 one,
Mhm.
all the way up to Batman and Robin. So he stayed with different directors to continue being Jim Gordon. Him and Alfred, I believe, are the only two actors that stayed on during that transition from Burton to Schumacher.
It's funny that they did that. It's great for him because he got to keep playing this role. It was totally unnecessary to do, but I do recognize him from that. Like I can picture him as the commissioner.
It feels like something that would absolutely not happen today. If you were like rebooting a franchise, you just keep it one guy from previous series. Now half the fun of a Batman movie, who's going to be Jim Gordon this time? Who's going to be Alfred?
That's true.
I like the newest batch. We got Jeffrey Wright as Jim Gordon, and we got my boy Andy Serkis as Alfred.
Those were fun.
The first Alfred who can 100% beat the shit out of Batman. Who are you taking in an Andy Serkis versus Robert Pattinson fight? Andy Serkis is going to beat the brakes off him. Are you kidding me?
Pattinson is a funny throwback actor in that way. Is he won't do the Hollywood steroid superhero diet and workout program. So he just stays scrawny and funny looking compared to all his peers who, even the guys who aren't playing superheroes, get yoked in Hollywood, but not our Pat.
No, the Batman was Paul Dano versus skinny Robert Pattinson. I was like, what a showdown. What a clash of the Titans. My favorite part about Pattinson, though, is that like when Matt Reeves told him, you got to get on this diet and start lifting weights. Well, first he was like, no. He's like, come on, you got to do it. And he's like, okay. And then he just showed up to set skinny as a bean scene. And he was like, what happened? He's like, I didn't do it. He was just like, okay, I'll do it. And then he just didn't do it. And he was like, what are you going to do? So Hingle's last role was in 2006's Talladega Nights.
Oh.
And he ended up settling down in Wilmington, North Carolina. He liked it so much. He liked the experience filming there that he made it his home.
Oh, that's nice.
And he sadly passed away there.
At least it wasn't the trucks that got him.
Right.
He's a fun character actor. He's super broad in this movie. His accent is impenetrable. Like, I turned on subtitles and rewound because I don't know what the last thing that Bubba just said. And then the subtitles said, in brackets, indistinct. And it didn't help me. I'm like, nobody knows what Bubba just said.
I clocked it as like a Savannah, Georgia accent. Like it's got that real thick, slow drawl. But yeah, it's tough to figure out. Like all these characters, like nobody in North Carolina sounds like any of these people. Laura Harrington, she acted sporadically from the early 80s to the late 90s, but she randomly had a credit for acting in a 2023 short film called Written for Walken, as in Christopher Walken, I believe it's spelled that way. She's probably best known for this, What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and future episode that Ian is very excited about, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai.
Yes, I didn't remember that she was in that. I can't really picture how she looked in that, but I'm looking forward to discovering her in that again.
Kind of weird she didn't have a bigger career because I thought she was pretty good in this. Like we said, there are some of the more overtly emotional beats that she maybe wasn't ready for. But, you know, actors can evolve and grow. I feel like given enough time, she could have nailed them. But everything else she was great at. She was also in The Devil's Advocate. I knew she looked familiar.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the Al Pacino's The Devil movie. So that is Maximum Overdrive. Ian, do you want to hear what we're doing next?
I do. I'm once again in the dark.
We're going to be bringing back one of the most requested guests to do one of our most requested movies.
Really?
That's right. Our boy Ron Iver is coming back to do Hot Rod.
Oh, yeah. What a combo.
What a combo. Every movie we've covered with Ron has been hilarious because we've done Gone in 60 Seconds and the Super Mario Brothers movie. This will be the first movie we're covering with Ron that's hilarious on purpose. So that will be a fun change of pace for us.
The hilarity is doubled up with that. Hot Ron, you could call the episode.
I'm not calling it that. You can't make me.
Hot Rod? No, I won't make you. No, Hot Rod is a super fun, funny movie. Ron is a super fun, funny guest. And I predict this will be a super fun episode.
Yeah, really looking forward to this one. A movie I've seen. Like, I could probably do this episode without watching it and still be fine. Like, still know what's going on, but I'm going to watch it again anyway, because why not? It's great
Good stuff.
I need to go to my quiet place. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe to the pod.
Please do.
You can follow us on Twitter at Blast Zone Pod. Stop posting on Blue Sky, to be honest. It's pretty weird over there. We like it.
It's hard to keep up the enthusiasm.
You know what they need? They need group chats. So much of my Twitter experience is based on just the group chats I have there. And without that on Blue Sky, it's tough to get excited about going there.
Yeah, I wonder if they're still developing and trying to expand the platform.
I hope so. I would love to get off Twitter, but right now it's just not in the cards. And you can also email us, blastzonepod@gmail.com, if you have any movie recommendations, questions, feedback. If you just want to talk about movies, we're happy to hear from you.
Love it.
Did I say rate, review, subscribe to the pod?
You did, yeah.
Yeah, please do that. We love seeing it. Every time the number goes up, I get so excited.
It's very
I
exciting.
text Ian, send it to my wife. She's like, I don't care. All right, that's it for us. We'll see you next time in the Blast Zone.
See you next time in the Blast Zone.
The Blast Zone.